Today I'm going to teach you some more jazz. Specifically, I'd like to work with a minor blues. Now, a blues is a blues, but this is minor as opposed to a major blues. And actually, if we're talking about blues, it's not really major, it's a dominant chord blues. But there's a lot of similarities. Some of the things are exactly the same, and some are different because of the minor tonality. All blues you typically have 1 chords, 4 chords, and 5 chords. And this minor jazz blues will too, but it'll have a number of other chords, mostly what we call 2/5s that lead to other places. And there's a couple of substitutions I'll probably put in here too. Now, if you don't know much about jazz, if jazz is not your forte, I recommend you go back to some of the earlier lessons and study some of the harmony, and maybe some of the walking bass line methods I've taught. Because I'm going to just focus on the blues here, I'm not really going to focus on the walking bass line. It may be simple or may be complicated, but so maybe you need some primer or maybe you don't, okay? Let's get started. All blues has a 1 chord. Here's the 1 chord in G minor. Now notice I just played root, and then I played the 10th, which is 1, 2, 3 of the minor, but it's up an octave. So here's the 1 chord again. Up to the 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Sometimes we even do this, but makes it dominant, leads to the 4. To the 1 chord, 6 chord. Here's a substitute for 2. It's a common one. 5, then a turnaround. Again, 1. 4 chord, 1 chord, 2, 5, leading to 4, 2, 5, leads to 1. Here's that 6 chord. Here's the 2, or that substitute, 5, then here's a turnaround. Let's do it a couple more times without me talking it. Cool, let's talk that a little bit. I did the 1 chord, of course, you heard that, to the 4 chord, and then a couple of times I went 2, 5, which leads to the 4 chord. So in the original key, it's not really 2, 5, but in jazz, we think of the chords, the chord of the moment, the tonality of the moment. Another time I went 1 chord, 2 chord, 4 chord, then 1 chord, and then I made it a dominant, which leads to this minor 4 chord. 2, 2, 5 to the 1 chord, 6 chord. Now sometimes I played the 2, but I also played this, which is a tritone to it. Like in Mr. PC, you hear that all the time. 5, and then that turnaround is the 1 chord, 6 chord, 2 chord, 5 chord, 1. And a lot of the chords I play are not necessarily diatonic to the true minor. In jazz, that little dominant sound going back and forth sounds great all the time. Let me do it a couple more times through without talking to it so you can just get the flavor, okay? And I'll try to get a little metronome. I'll do it with my foot here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, got the idea? Now let's add that Mr. PC melody. I skipped the 4 chord. Now we go to it. Cool. Now let me show you some of that real simple walking bass line I was doing. During that turnaround, 1 chord, 6 chord, 2 chord, 5 chord, I was just playing the half steps. Root, half step, root, half step, root, half step, root, half step, root. I do half steps a lot, and then I fill them in with chord tones, a lot of fifths. Let's do some of that. Root, fifth, root, half step, root, fifth, root, fifth, root, root, fifth, root, third, fifth, half step, root, 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 fifth, root, half step, 6, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, fifth, root, half steps. Got the idea? Again, go back to some of that earlier teaching I've done on working on your fifths and thirds and sevenths and half steps. You must, in a walking bass line, to make it solid, this is the same for all music, but particularly in a walking bass line, you must be willing to master those really basic fundamentals, like the root. You can't believe how many times students play for me in little auditions and interviews and just whatever, and I say play something for me when I first meet students, and they simply miss the roots. Now, no one says, there's no rules, no laws, that you've got to play the root on every beat or every downbeat of every chord. But by gummy, if you're not careful and don't play enough of them, it just doesn't sound solid. I was teaching last week a bunch of Motown stuff in R&B, and my God, maybe 2 measures out of 20 hours of teaching, 30 hours of teaching, maybe 2 or 3 measures that we were looking at some great bass lines. Were they not playing the root and the downbeat? No, it's called the bass for a reason. And you can do the same thing in jazz. I am positive that a bunch of people in jazz think, oh my God, it's jazz and I got to do a bunch of other cool hip things. Well, anything you want to do is fine. But you want to get gigs and play with good players. You're the bass player. You need to play solid. And I assure you, no one is going to say, hey man, you played too many roots if you're playing solid. By the way, if someone says that, just smile and go find some other musicians, okay? Now, obviously, there are more complicated things to do, and you can, but I assure you, if you'll work on that foundation, everything else will take care of itself. Let's do it a little bit again. Hopefully, you've got those chords memorized now. If you don't, just go back and rewind this and memorize those chords. You don't need to get a book, write them down, just memorize the sounds of the chords. Here we go. I'm going to play just a real simple bass line. A 1, 2, 3, Let's do it again. should get you started. Let me explain a little bit about how you should approach this, or meaning this lesson. I get people all the time that watch these lessons and they go, that's great, Jim, but. No, there's no but. Just watch the stuff I did, and if you like it, copy it. You don't need any theory. You sure as heck don't need any tab, because it's a video. Just watch it. Now, if you don't like it, that's fine, man. That's cool. But I don't really teach concepts that you go study. I teach actual bass lines of music that if you like them, copy them, learn them, and play them. By the way, there's not an original bone in my body when it comes to music. I stole all this stuff from great players. I've just been playing it so long that I don't even remember where I got it, and I call it mine. That's one of the cool things about music. Nobody really cares about plagiarism as long as it sounds good. So what you do is you just look at that and listen to it, and you go, man, I like that chorus, or I like that one thing you did. Well, just copy it, learn it. And if you'll do this enough, you'll have the sound of the blues in your ears. You'll understand the concept. Then, or at the same time, listen to some minor blues played by great players. And you'll start to hear how this stuff fits in there. The most common one that comes to my mind is Mr. PC. It's normally done in C minor, but I did it in G minor here. I think I missed a note too. Maybe I should play that melody again just to make sure it's right, huh? Let's do that, in case you want to learn Mr. PC. Here we go. Cool, there you go. But the point I'm making is work with this lesson so that you can actually play and play along with me these things that I'm showing you. That's what I do in my lessons with my students. I don't give them things to go home and do that we aren't physically doing in the lesson. No, it's all about production of a sound. And let me add here, or let me sort of backtrack, or foundation, fill in some of the foundation. What is practicing? Practice is the repetition of a predetermined physical activity. Not thinking about it, not watching it. And by the way, that's cool. I like it when people watch my videos and go, that's cool. But I really would like people to think of it as a real bass lesson and go practice and learn that stuff, okay? Now I'm going to go to a little video now, and I'll just demonstrate some of the stuff in a little groove, okay? So you can feel the time of the blues and they go by. Cool. Here we go.